Well, welcome everyone. We thank you for joining us again here. This is the cattle show. We have some breeding heifers coming up and then the steer show to follow. But before we get into that, special thanks to all of our live stream sponsors. So if you're watching right now, these are the folks that you need to thank for that opportunity, and we are grateful for them. Right Farrier Services, Cap Brothers Rabbitry, PMI Pipe Steel and Supplies, Republic of Texas Tailgate, Southwest Erectors, Clancy Hall with Phyllis Browning Land and Ranch Company, Birkeland Excavating and Ag Services. And let's not forget all of our buckle sponsors. Here they are: Grand Champion Heifer, Dream Catcher Ranch; Reserve Champion Heifer, Odell Excavation and Equipment; Grand Champion Market Steer, Ozona Bank; Reserve Champion Market Steer, H&H Flooring Solutions, excuse me, and the Herring family; Senior Showmanship, Southwest Erectors; Junior Showmanship, Laney Construction; Intermediate Showmanship, Huckabee Family in memory of Mike Huckabee; Clover Showmanship, Sweetwater Cookies, and Cindy Hunter; Champion AOB, Colored, Lone Star Cattlemen; Reserve Champion AOB, Colored, West San Marcos Dove Hunt Foundation; Champion AOB Black, Odell Excavation and Equipment; Reserve Champion AOB Black, Sunset Construction and Excavation; Champion ABC, Odell Excavation and Equipment, and they've also got the Reserve Champion ABC. Champion British will go to the Hill Country, is from the Hill Country Way Services, and Reserve Champion is the KK Cattle Company. All right, well, that's all of the paperwork we have for you right now. Let's go ahead and turn things over to the arena. Again, thanks so much for joining us. We're glad you could be here with us tonight.
He received an agribusiness degree from Texas A&M, where he was also a member of the Livestock Dental team. He is currently an ag science teacher in Deer Park, Texas, and raises show steers and Dorper sheep with his family. Austin and his wife Sierra and their two sons, Slayton and Stockton, reside in Baytown, Texas. Austin has judged numerous states across the country and enjoys working with youth and being involved in the livestock industry.
Well, good evening, and thank you for having me out to work with your young people and your cattle today. Really excited and looking forward to the opportunity to get to work through another year here in Hays County, and really appreciate the efforts of our young people here in our first class of our heifer show. They definitely come to us in different shapes and sizes, definitely some difference in age, maturity, and fleshing ability. But I think it comes together very logically. The top three end up being a bit closer. The young man's heifer I lead on ends up being the combination of 2 and 3. She's got the moderation, softness of rib cage, and extra punch from behind, like the one in third does, but still a nice feminine, proportional look, like the one in second does. There's no doubt from the profile, she probably isn't the tallest fronted, the cleanest there in the way her shoulder hooks into her neck and her forerib. But she's moderate, she's bold-bodied, and very functional in terms of her skeleton. Maybe not the neatest up front. 2 and 3 are a bit different. I'll be honest, the heifer in second, she had more body and she was rounder in her rib. She'd win this class pretty easy for me. Her skeleton's awesome. Feet and legs work so good, and when she comes together for the young lady, a ton of quality from the profile. I think the big issue is just with her frame. She needs to be rounder in her forerib and softer there in the middle of her body, there back to her flank, but very high quality in terms of her proportions, presence, and balance. The Gert heifer probably is the smallest in terms of age and maturity. She probably gives up a little bit of performance, but pound for pound and age for age, that one's feature, levelness, and quality from the side is very good. And I like the shape to her body. I thought of the initial trio. She ended up being the most upright in her shoulder and her hot. I didn't think she was quite as flexible on the lead, but on the stand, that one has a lot of quality, a lot of future to her. Same could be said for the black heifer, long, level, very fresh and feminine ahead of her body. I just want to fix the way her rear leg's constructed. She's a bit awkward in her hock and not as comfortable in the way she sets her rear foot to the surface. I didn't read her to maybe be quite as bold in her forerib and maybe not as powerful from behind as some of those cattle. But on the stand, the young man does an awesome job. Very feminine, attractive heifer in the way her top line comes together. Moderate, easy fleshing one comes next. She's a bit plainer ahead of her shoulder, a little thicker there in terms of her neck, a little bigger and rounder there at the point of her shoulder. But she's moderate, big body, and very flexible there in terms of her build. Yellow heifer is definitely a little taller fronted and a little sleeker and more feminine ahead of it. On the stand, I like her balance as good as any. I like the one in front. I don't know if she's quite as bold there in the middle of her body, not as secure there in her hock and her rear foot, but definitely a lot of quality from the side. Good looking, level, flat backed one comes next. Young lady does an awesome job showing her. She just needs more bone, more pin width and punch from behind, but definitely a lot of value in her build and balance and the way she comes together. Young lady's brindle heifer we close with is good stock. She's sound, she's flexible, and still very feminine through the front third of her body. I thought in this group she gave up too much performance and body shape, maybe not enough pin width from behind. Very good class here. Put your hands together for those kiddos.
First call, senior heifers. Start making your way to the holding pen. First call, senior heifers. To the holding pen, please. Placings for our heifers up to 12 months. First place, William Dornack. Second place, Shelby Cox. Third place, William Zellhart. Fourth place, Huck Thomas. Fifth place, Jose Soto. Sixth place, Diana Hurtado. Seventh place, Penelope Soto. Eighth place, Holly Dam. Remember, first and second need to be ready after the senior heifers for the heifer drive. First and second place.
Thought another good class, and definitely not as many numbers, but the quality's still there. All the cattle all the way down the line. I definitely have some function and some value to them. I thought the top pair is a bit closer. I thought those were the sounder-footed, moderate, easier fleshing cattle that had some quality from the profile. You get on a three-quarter view, the yellow heifer's quite a bit rounder in her forerib. Those cattle turn and go. She's definitely stouter and square in terms of her pin width and squareness she has from her hock to her rear foot. I think then from the side, she still has a nice level, feminine, attractive look. She maybe isn't the best in terms of the angle of her shoulder, but relative to the Red Angus heifer. But I like the fact that she blends extra punch with a nice quality look from the side. The very soft-haired, big-mettled red heifer's intriguing from a maternal brood cow function standpoint. Very soft and secure in the way she uses her hip and her hind leg. I thought maybe relative to the yellow heifer from behind the cattle, she'll pull her hock in ever so slightly. Maybe not as stout and big and opened up in terms of her pin set, but very big in her body, soft and smooth and feminine in her look. I think a nice top pair to go ahead and lead this class. The black and white heifer's a little rougher around the edges. She's not as fleshy, doesn't have as much hair maybe as some, but she's really good cattle in terms of her feet and her legs. Her upper rib shape's bold and a ton of pin width and dimension from behind. She's just a bit rounder, a little higher in her tail head, maybe not as soft from her heart back to her flank. That cattle there is very sound and functional, still has some real muscle to her. The Brahman heifer is very sound and true in terms of her build and her balance. I thought in this group with her extra frame, she maybe gave up some substance in the middle of her body, maybe not as powerful from behind, but very good-legged, very high quality from the side. The red heifer we close with definitely has plenty of performance and extension. She's as sound and as secure in terms of her feet and legs as any. Just with her extra frame. I wish she was a little bolder in her body, had a little more punch from behind. Another excellent class. Put your hands together for those kids.
We need a representative from Laban, FFA, to go to home skills, please. Representative from Layman to go to the home skills, please.
stock-show.live/archives and find what you may have missed. Take a peek when you get a minute. Looks like that audio may not have gone through. Sorry about that. What I was trying to say, though, is if you missed anything over the course of this last week of this Hays County Stock Show, you can always go to stock-show.live/archives, or just click the menu option there and find it, archives. And we'll have, well, gosh, I guess we've got the last 4 years of Hays County Stock Show shows there in the archives for you to view. So if you missed anything, that's always a good option.
Really high quality set here in our older class of heifers that we have. Definitely a lot of differences in terms of flesh maturity and where they are in terms of their gestation. The cow-calf pair, the black and white cow, I used to lead off. Quality and balance from the profile, I think in this group, she's easily the freshest there in her bottom line and through her neck and her chest. But her ability to get out and cover some ground, her feet and legs are so good. She maintains some width and squareness from behind, and still is maintaining and keeping up a very stout, muscular bull calf she's got on her side. Her teats are a bit long, and she's maybe not as just deep there in the middle of her body back to her flank. But that's a high-quality cow that's got a good calf there on her side. The Beefmaster heifer here in second on the stand, I like a lot of things about. A very stout-featured, level-topped, feminine-fronted heifer that's got a lot of proportion here from the profile. We could clean her up at the base of her chest, and I like the set to her hip and hind leg. I think in motion she shuffles her hock a bit. I wish she was more comfortable and confident in the way she used it, but it's still very functional in my opinion. I don't think she's just quite as fresh in her bottom line, and maybe doesn't have as much width and squareness from behind the cattle, but a good one ended up in second. On the stand, the Hereford marked one's got some things you like. Her length, levelness, and extension. I thought of the initial trio. She needed to be bolder in the middle of her body and give her more pin width and dimension from behind. But I like the fact that she's looser structured and more functional out of her hip and her hind leg relative to the Shorthorn. The Shorthorn, no doubt's burlier bodied, denser there in her forerib and center, a ton of dimension from behind the cattle, and I still think she proportions okay. My Hickey with hers in motion, she's a bit straighter in her shoulder and her knee. Behind the cattle, she'll push her hock and rear foot ever so slightly. I just need her to be sounder and more comfortable and secure off of both ends of her body. Gray heifer we're going to close with is longer, striding, squarer in terms of her hock and her rear foot. I like her balance from the side as good as any. I just think in the middle of her body she needs to be fuller and bolder, and I don't think she has the same quite a pin width and dimension as they leave me. But another excellent class of older heifers. Put your hands together for those kids.
Results for senior heifers. First, Shelby Cox. Second, Shelby Cox. Third, Laramie Dole. Fourth, Morgan Smith. Fifth, Carolyn Birkland. American Cross steers. Start your way to the holding pen. American Cross steers. To the holding pen, please. Our buckle sponsors for the 2024 Grand Champion and Reserve Champion heifers. For the Grand Champion, Green Catcher Ranch is the sponsor. for the reserve champion heifer, Odell Excavation and Equipment. Y'all be sure and tell these people thank you.
Certainly a lot of quality and depth in our heifer show and the 3 classes that we have. Really appreciate the kind of cattle that were brought. I really appreciate the young people's efforts in getting the cattle ready and shown. Certainly takes a lot in terms of your family and your friends and your ag teachers and extension agents getting that put together. I think our first and seconds definitely represent some good classes and they're good functional cattle that have some quality to them. I'll run through them briefly so you can know my thought process. I thought the first class had some challenge, but the more I studied them, the more it made sense to land on the young man's. She's moderate, she's big-bodied, she's got some genuine width and squareness, and still maintains a very functional skeleton. She's a little higher in her tail head, maybe not as smooth at the point of her shoulder, but in terms of brood cow function, I thought she easily needed to win that class. The one that was second to her, if she had more belly, that one definitely needed to win. Because her build and balance was so good. She was just a little too shallow and flat in the middle of her body to me. Just need her to be softer and more maternal in her look. Class 2, another really good group there. I thought the yellow heifer and the red heifer were very moderate, big-bodied cattle. They're very sound and practical in terms of their skeleton. I thought the yellow heifer had a little more genuine rib and dimension from behind. I thought she was a bit square in the way her hock and rear foot left me, and maybe had an edge, just an extension in height to shoulder. We step off the cattle from the side. We said we could set her back in the angle to her shoulder. She may not be the softest back to her flank, but I like the fact that she's sound, she's genuine and bold, and still has a quality look. And like I said, the red heifer is so soft-haired, big-middled, and very sound and flexible on the go. As we said, from behind, I wish she was a bit wider and square, maybe was a little neater up front, but a very nice heifer that ends up there in second. In class 3, I thought that was another good class, older heifers. I like the fact the black and white heifer, or the cow-calf pair, excuse me. I like the fact she's not only very sound and flexible and attractive, but she's raising a very high-quality bull calf there on her side. As we said in class, she's probably just a bit shallower in her heart, back to her flank and not as full, but she's raising a quality bull calf. I'll give her the edge there, but a very nice heifer that gets out and goes with a lot of comfort and security. The Beefmaster heifer that ends up second, very rugged in terms of her bone and her foot size. I think very bold in the shape to her forerib and center body. I like the levelness of her top line and the way her neck comes out, the top of her shoulder. Like we said, we could clean her up there at the base of her chest. And I think there in motion, she's probably just not as flexible and maybe just as agile in the way she uses her hip and her rear leg. But I think on the stand, young man gets all out of her that he definitely can. So definitely a good set of heifers here. A lot of quality and a lot of differences. My personal favorite's the yellow one. She'll be your champion. Congratulations. We drop in the Red Angus heifer, and she's certainly in the mix, as we said. She's so moderate and easy fleshing in just her brood cow function, and so maternal in her view from the side, and very flexible out of her hip and her hind leg. As we said, maybe not as clean-fronted as the one that wins this particular show, and maybe not as genuinely stout out of her pin set as the one that wins as well, but just in terms of function and moderation, think a good kind of heifer that we have. And then the cow-calf pair, I think that maybe that's in the mix with her. I just like the fact she's so sound and true in terms of her build and has some genuine muscle from behind. As we said, I wish she had just a bit more flesh there in her heart there back to her flank. But I like the fact that she's raising a good bull calf on her side. She's my second favorite. She'll be reserved. Congratulations.
First class, American Cross to the holding pen. American Cross, first class to the holding pen. Our results for our 2024 Heifer Show Grand Champion, Eliana Hurtado out of Class 2. Our reserve champion, Shelby Clocks out of Class 3. Last call, American Cross. First class English steer to the old pen, please. First class English steers to the old pen.
only one class of the Americans that we have, but I think a trio of cattle that represent a lot of quality, definitely very different in how they comes to us in terms of their build, their balance, and genuine muscle and finish that they have. The two more market-ready cattle that are wider built, bolder sprung, and have more shape from above are the two here to my far right. I think we asked those cattle to go. I'm a little more comfortable on the fact that the young lady here in the green sweater's calf's a little longer striding, just a little more secure off of both ends of his body. I'll be honest, when he came in, his head was down and he hit me a bit plain through his front end. I think he could be a bit sleeker there and maybe a little cleaner at the top of his crest, but he's moderate, bold in his forerib and center body, and when he leaves me, he's one of the wider, square-built cattle in this group, and we ask him to go. He's longer striding and just more secure there off of both ends of his body relative to the one in second. Make him just a bit cleaner and a little neater there. I think a nice calf, though. On the stand, I love a lot of things about the giant-legged, very shapely and expressive calf the young lady in the red shirt has. I love the shape he's got out of the back of his shoulder. Maybe relative to the one that wins, he's probably a bit cleaner there in terms of his crest and the way his neck comes out of the top of his blades, and very shapely from behind. We ask him to go. I read the shorter-bodied calf to be just a bit more upright in his shoulder and his knee. I like the set to his hind leg on the stand, maybe not as just loose and secure in the way he goes. I think a very nice pair of American cattle we have to lead this particular group. The black and white one ends up being a bit skinny relative to those ahead. He's a little more immature in his forerib shape, probably not as big and bulky there in his back, but I read lots of quality in that calf. He's sound, he's flexible, and when he gets him parked to put together, that calf's got a nice level, extended, attractive look. In this group, I need him to be wider, more market ready in the center of his body, and have a little more shape from behind. That's an excellent trio. Congratulations, those kids.
Our results in the American Cross. First place, Bobby Kendall Schubert. Second place, Shelby Cox. Third place, Clayton Dole. Buckles for the champion and reserve champion American Cross from Odell Excavation and Equipment.
nice trio of lighter weight British cattle we have. The two Hereford marked cattle are a bit bolder and have a little more bone and muscle from behind, maybe relative to our black calf, but I think a good trio that are definitely just a little different in terms of how they move and how they proportion from the side. Young lady in the red shirt that we're going to lead off with from behind the cattle in this group is the most impressive in terms of the width and shape he has coming out of the top of his hip, but maintains some genuine squareness and width underneath his skeleton, and he sets it down on a squarer and truer foot. I like the fact that he's very shapely out of the back of his shoulder. He's more advanced in his finish. You handle him, he's just a bit smoother there over his 12th and his 13th relative to the calf behind. He's probably not as cool looking, maybe not as neat in the way his neck comes out of the top of his blades, but he's loose, he's wide, and he's square. I like him to start. The calf here in second on the stand, I love a lot of things about. Giant-legged, flat-backed, and really good in the way his neck comes out of the top of his shoulder. I like his expression he's got behind his blades. I just wish he was a little farther along. He's a little bit flatter and drier in the middle of his body from behind the cattle. I thought he narrowed up a bit to his base, maybe not as square in terms of his foot shape from behind, but a calf that's got a lot of bone and a lot of quality there from the side. Good calf in third. He's sound, he's practical. I actually like the shape and expression he's got out of the back of his shoulder. Young lady gets him nailed every time and gives him a high quality look here on the setup. I thought in this group he ended up being the narrower built, flatter bodied one that maybe wasn't as powerful, but definitely a lot of good in terms of his balance and his quality that the calf's got. Good trio here. Congratulations.
Our placings for Class 1 of the English steers. First place, Shelby Cox. Second place, Reagan Rosenangel. Third place, Penelope Soto.
showers in the month of May. The ground's still wet and the sky's still gray, but you're still shining. No cadences or chords to play, no melodies or words to say, but you're still singing, and it keeps me breathing. When I fall apart into a million pieces, when I don't know where to start, you put me back together. You put me back together again. When the waters rise and the levee breaks, through your tear-filled eyes and your hands that shake, darling, I'll be steady.
A really nice trio of Hereford Mark cattle that we have in our heavier weight British division. Definitely different in terms of where they are, in terms of their handle quality, and just in terms of how they balance and how they move. The young lady with the longer feathered Hereford marked one to win. In terms of build, balance, and quality on the setup, he wins pretty easy. Easy to see that he's very attractive and extended through the front third of his body. His feet and his legs work so good and still comes together with a nice look. You get your hands on him, he's dimensional behind his shoulder and still has some squareness from behind. I think he could be a bit further just in terms of bulk and denseness in the center of his body. Maybe not as big in terms of his twist and stifle, but very, very high quality in terms of his skeleton and proportions that he's got. The calf in second is moderate. He's big-bodied. He's shapely out of the back of his blades. From the side, he's a little dippy in his back, a little higher in his loin. Maybe not as neat in the way in terms of his head, neck, and chest come out of his body, but he's loose skeleton, he's bold, and he's practical. Just not as good balance there as our class winner. The one in third's a little higher off the ground. I love the shape and expression he's got out of the back of his shoulder. Very stout in terms of his foot size and his bone. I just want to fix the build he puts it on. The straighter fronted calf's a bit tighter and more uncoordinated in the way he uses his hip and his hind leg, but very expressive and very stout constructed. I think an excellent trio. Congratulations.
Results, Class 2 English. First, Winston Raines. Second, Wyatt Lorenzen. Third, Calvin Kinley.
rest of my life. Let's not waste time, oh, take this slow. We got miles behind us, but miles to go. So let's just break this down to the simplest truth. You and I as one will always be better than two.
First call for AOC colors to the holding pen, please.
Let's not waste time. Oh, take
Class
this
one,
slow.
first
We got
call.
miles behind us, but
AOB,
miles to
other
go.
color to
So
the
let's
holding
just
pen,
break
please.
this down to the simplest truth. You and I as one will always be better than two. Yeah, you and I as one will always be better than two.
I think high quality and competitive describe the British division. Excellent pair of class winners we have and a really good set of seconds that we follow. I thought the division was good. Maybe not as many numbers, but cattle definitely had some value and some good to them all the way through. Pair of lightweight cattle are a little bit different. I like the young ladies here in the red. I thought he was a bit wider and more genuine and square at the surface. And from behind the cattle, very impressive in terms of his pin width, the way his stifle sits out wide, but he still drives off of a very square and secure hock and rear foot. As we said, he's probably not the coolest looking, maybe the levelest, maybe not the softest there back to his flank, but he is genuinely wide and bold and very comfortable at the surface. On the setup, the long feathered one's high quality. The way his neck comes out of his blades, how he maintains his spine and tail head and rear legs, very good, and still has some genuine dimension when you get your hands on him. As we said, he's probably not just right there in terms of his finish over his 12th and his 13th, and maybe not as much shape there at the seat of his pants, but man, that one has got a killer look and an awesome set to his rear leg. The second out of class one is giant-legged, really level in his top line and good in the way his neck comes out of his blades, very shapely and expressive from above. I thought relative to that class winner, he narrowed up a bit at the surface, not as genuinely bold in his heart and his forerib, and maybe not as square in terms of his front foot and his knee relative to that class winner. And another second behind her heavy was just moderate, big body and very dimensional from above. I think from a balance standpoint, he needs to be changed. He's a little deeper in his chest and higher in his flank. I want to flip that around and help his bottom line balance. I think that'll improve his symmetry from the profile, but in terms of moderation, body type, and functionality, that calf's got a lot of good to him. So my compliments to all of our British cattle. Awesome job getting these cattle presented. My personal favorites, the heavyweight, will follow him up with the lightweight for reserve.
Our results in the English. Our champion, Winston Rains out of Class 2. Our reserve champion, Shelby Cox out of Class 1. Our belt buckle donated by Hill Country Wastewater Services for the champion British. Our reserve champion British, KK Cattle Company. All breed champions, please do not forget, at the end of the steer show, you have to go to the vet room with your steer. 2, AOB, other color. To the holding pen, please. Class 2, AOB. To the holding pen, please.
Awesome set of lightweights we have to start off our exotic division. Definitely different in terms of good set of lightweights and definitely a lot of quality all the way through. They're so different in how they come to us, but it makes the most sense to me to start the widest, soundest, highest quality calf on the profile. The young lady's yellow one. He twists his front feet ever so slightly. The point of his shoulder may not be the smoothest, but in this group, his ability to blend practicality and muscularity with a proportional look lets him start pretty easy. I like a lot of things about this really tall-fronted, good-necked one in second. I love just his elevation and extension that he's got. You get your hands on him. That calf's got a big dimension and shape out of the back of his blades. I don't think he blends and comes together with the same look as our class winner. Shoulder to forerib transition's a bit rawer and not as smooth. Top line maybe didn't hook in quite as good. And I thought the last circle there, I thought that calf pulled his hock and stifle in just a bit relative to the one that wins this class. But his looseness of structure, bone, and feature and quality look keeps him up here in second. The white steer on the stand's very, very attractive. The level, giant-legged steer's got a nice neck there. Love the way it comes out of the top of his blades. In motion, he's loose structured. I just wish he was more coordinated. From behind the cattle, he sets his hock and rear foot a bit wide, and you get your hands on him. I didn't read his forerib to be quite as bold, quite as genuine in his shape up high, but I love his balance and symmetry he's got there from the profile. Young lady with the paint calf does an awesome job of getting this one parked and put together and presented. I really appreciate that. I thought in this group, that was one of the bigger back, higher cutability cattle that squared up with more shape there over their rib and their loin. Very, very aggressive in his cutability up high. I think from afar, the shallower body calf's tighter in his flank. I want to fix his shoulder and his knee just a bit straighter there, but man, he's got a good look and a good shape out of the back of his blades. The yellow calf's moderate, easy feeding, and very practical in his makeup. I thought relative to the cattle on either side of him, the narrow-chested steer's a bit flatter in his body. He didn't have the same shape and expression from above, but I like the fact that he's sounder and he's bigger middle than our gray calf. The gray calf we've got closing, big backed, very shapely, trim, and high kitability. Just want to fix the build he puts it on. A bit straighter off of both ends, maybe not as soft from his heart back to his flank. Excellent class of lightweights. Put your hands together for those kids.
Results, Class 1, AOB, other color. First, Quincy Raines. Second, Clayton Dole. Third, Elena Anna Hurtado. Fourth, Kelsey Tovar. Fifth, Cody Larson. Sixth, Clayton Dole.
Such a fun class to put together, so many differences, and probably one of our bigger classes we've had. I wanted to take a little bit longer and make sure everyone got a fair look. Everybody's calf maybe wasn't cooperating the best, and definitely wanted to get the best image of their calf there from the side there at the end. But love the quality here, ton of differences. Young man steer we lead off with is the widest and the most comfortable on the go. As those cattle turn and circle, he's easily the most secure in the way he uses his shoulder and his knee. Definitely the most flexible and functional out of his hip and his hind leg. But maybe more importantly, that's one of the rounder bodied cattle in this group that square up some fresh shape out of the back of his shoulder and leaves me with the most impressive pin width and stifle shape there and the way he carries it down to the surface. He'll drop his pins ever so slightly on the move, and he's got a little bit of swelling on the inside of his back leg, but he uses it so good and the shape of it from the side so good. I just like his youthfulness and powerful look here from a 3/4 view. The calf in second can give you tremendous looks. He's definitely taller fronted and cleaner, more extended ahead of it. I love the shape he's working out of the back of his blades. He's so long bodied and really square there out of his hip. He's got a tremendous look of quality from the side, a big cage laid into him. It's on the move where I want to change him. He gets a bit looser in his top line, and for behind the cattle, he'll set his hock and his rear foot a bit wide. I just wish he was more secure and confident in the way he used it. But man, tremendously good looking and very powerful from behind the cattle. I think similar things can be said for the white one. Good build, high quality look from this side. And I thought of this remaining group, he was one of the bigger and broader ones out of the back of his blades and still has some genuine squareness and shape there out of the top of his hip. I thought of the initial trio. He's a bit drier in his lower body, a little tighter to his flank, and just reads a bit more immature. But I thought his quality build and look with some genuine shape up high, he definitely needed to be third. The red and white one, I think, can swing in this group because on the stand, he's got a really good look and very powerful when you get your hands on him. A big shape out of the back of his blades, very powerful from behind. It's just his build that I need changing. He's too straight and over in his knee. From behind the cattle, he'll push his hock too wide. He just needs to be sounder and more secure in the way he comes to the dirt for me. But man, very good looking, tremendously shapely and cutability driven. Yellow and white ones, no doubt, sounder, squarer, and truer in terms of his build. I love his balance from the side. It's coming and going. He's too in at his chest and his knee. He's too flat in his forehead, but I want to just make him bigger and broader from above. But I thought his quality, look, and build kept him up over the gold one. The gold one has more genuine width and muscle from behind. I thought from a balance standpoint, he fell out. A little shorter and crestier in his neck, a little rounder out of his hip, and I didn't think he was quite as loose and comfortable there out of his hip and his hind leg. The white calf we close with, probably one of the heavier weight cattle in this group that's more advanced in his degree of finish. I like that about him. Very shapely out of the back of his blades. I just want to fix his structure. He's a bit straighter off of both ends, a little higher and tighter in his spine. Just need him to be sounder, more comfortable there on the go. Excellent class. My compliments to those kids.
Our results in Class 2, AOB other color, first, Luke Lorenzen, second, Bobby Kendall Schubert, third, Millie Powers, fourth, Everly Shumway, fifth, Morgan Smith, sixth, Casey May Kinley, seventh, Eliana Hurtado,
If you're still standing ringside, put your hands together for our exotic exhibitors that have come through. Thought a very good show, and these probably end up being some of the lighter weight cattle that we had. There was a ton of spread in just terms of degree of finish, muscularity from above, and then just how they balanced in proportion. I thought pretty handily. These 4 yellow-hided ones were the highest quality in terms of a genuine fat steer perspective, but still having some functionality in their lower joints and having a quality look. Calf that wins Class 1, incredible just in terms of his build, of his hip and his hind leg. I love his proportions from the side. I think he fits together so good. And then on top of that, I think a soft hair coat just helps him balance and give him a ton of quality here from the profile. I think from above, that's a very big back calf that's very dimensional. He's got some hip and stifle when he leaves you. As we said, he'll twist his front feet out just a bit. May not be as extreme in terms of his bone and his foot size. I think a calf that's very proportional. On a comparative note, when those cattle leave me, he may not maintain his width and squareness from above is genuine. There to his hock and his rear foot is one behind him. But I just love his balance and his proportions and the way he comes together there from the side. The calf that was second to him, probably a little taller fronted and maybe a little more extended there ahead of it. I love the shape he's got out of the back of his blades, and he's still very loose and functional. He's got a little extra curl to his hind leg, and he maybe doesn't blend his shoulder to forerib quite as good, and maybe not as impressive from behind, but I think a calf on the stand, you have to appreciate his bone, his quality look there from the profile. And then our calf that wins Class 2, incredible in the middle of his body, wide-chested, round in his forerib and cage. And when he leaves me, that's my favorite view. His ability to be so stout and square to the top of his hip, but maintain the squareness of his hock and his rear foot is very hard to do. He's a little flatter haired and maybe not as just soft in his hair coat and cool in his look from the side, but I like the fact that he's powerful, he's good structured, and still proportions plenty well. As we said, haters might say he's got a little swelling on the inside of his hock, but he is the soundest and the most comfortable in the way he uses his hip and his hind leg in this drive. The calf that ends up second behind him on the stand, I love a lot of things about. Sharp-fronted, really bold in the middle of his body, a ton of shape over his rib and his loin. As we said, in motion, he'll come apart in his top line just a shade, and from behind, he'll stab his back legs just a little wide and uncoordinated. Just wish he was more secure there, but man, very highly presented and very shapely there out of the back of his blades. I think a tremendous division, a lot of differences between it. I think some close calls that you have to make. The one that's the most unique and impressive to me is the one that maintains his extra punch on the most secure foundation. This young man here in the blue, he'll be our champion. We drop in the second, and as I said, definitely high quality in his look, big lead in terms of his body shape and muscle. But the one that next close follows our champion in terms of proportions, skeletal quality, and extra punch from above. The young lady up front, she'll be reserved. Congratulations.
First call, AOB Black. To the holding pen. First call, AOB Black. Class 1, to the holding pen, please. Our champion for the AOB, other color, Mr. Luke Lorenzen, out of Class 2. Our reserve champion, Miss Quincy Raines out of Class 1. Buckles for the champion, donated by Lone Star Cattleman. Buckles for the reserve champion, West San Marcos Dove Hunt Foundation. Class 2, AOB Black, start making your way to the holding pen, please. Class 2, AOB Black, to the holding pen, please.
Nice group here to start off our AOB Blank division, and definitely some things we could talk about and changing their structure and maybe the way they get out and go. But the bottom line is the black and white calf's ability to be the most muscular and the highest quality on the setup makes me think he needs to win pretty easy. No doubt he needs to be a little softer back to his flank. He probably isn't the softest in terms of his rear foot. We could probably set his tail head down just a shade, but in this group, he's the roundest body, the freshest and biggest out the back of his blades. Then he comes together with a very stout, tall shoulder, high neck attachment that kind of gives me a little more quality here when we step off afar from the cattle. 2 and 3 are a bit closer. I like the market readiness and body shape of the young man's to be second. You get your hands on him, that's the bigger top, mellower handling steer that maintains more width and squareness from behind the cattle, obviously from the side. He's a little more jammed up in his head, neck, shoulder, and chest. He'll come up in his loin and duck his pins just a bit, but I like the fact he's more market ready. He's definitely more practical in his rib cage and his structure. On the stand, when the blaze doesn't fight the young man, he comes together with a very high quality look. Very tall at the top of his blades, so sharp and so clean, extended ahead of it. And I think he's got a good shape and expression and turn to muscle out of the back of his blades. I thought you get your hands on him in that particular pair. He's a bit flatter in his forend, a little drier in terms of his finish. I too want to set his loin down in him, make his hip and tail head come up just a bit. Young lady we close with, no doubt her steer's more collected in his top line. He's very sound and practical there in his feet and his legs. The frailer bone calf's a little flatter in his forehead. He didn't come with the same expression and muscularity throughout. Good class, congratulations to those kids.
Class 2, AOB Black. It's your turn. To the holding pen, please. Class 2, AOB Black. Our results for AOB Black, Class 1. First place, Bobby Kendall Schubert. Second place, Wyatt Lorenzen. Third place, Laramie Dole. Fourth place, Caitlin Larson. Benching in the show barn and in the stand. Sullivan Supply, parked down here in the arena, will be closing at the end of the show. So if you need anything, go get it.
showers in the month of May. The ground's still wet and the sky's still gray, but you're still shining. No cadences or chords to play, no melody.
Excellent class, a heavier weight, black AOVs to end on. A good group of four that come to us with a lot of quality, but yet a lot of differences. But yet the black and white Brockles hair coat, balance and symmetry from the side is very intimidating. He's so level and good in the way his neck comes out of the top of his blades, yet so shallow and juvenile at the base there of his chest. And you get your hands on him, I read him to be very dimensional out of the back of his blades. Young man said he was in the upper 1300s, and I think where he's at now, he's appropriate in terms of his finish. I'll be strictly honest, from behind the cattle, I wish he maintained a bit more width and squareness to the surface. I don't read him maybe to be as busted open and as genuine underneath, but that one's build, balance, and quality there from the profile is certainly unique in this particular group. I like a lot of things about the black one here in second. He is heads up, round in the upper part of his forerib. You get your hands on him, that is a big backed, high cutability steer that's got a lot of shape working over his rib and his loin. I thought relative to the class winner, he was a bit drier in his forerib and flank. I didn't think his top line, hip, and tail head came together, but man, that is one is good looking, loose structured, and still very shapely from above. The one in third is a little higher performing, a little longer bodied. He too has got a good shape and expression there out of the back of his shoulder. I thought in this group, the bigger frame calf's a bit flatter and drier in the center of his body. I didn't think he was quite as comfortable in his step there out of the front end of his skeleton, but dang sure good looking and a lot of shape out of the back of his blades. The young lady we close with brings us a little more moderate, bigger bodied calf that's probably got more finish there over his 12th and his 13th, and maybe a little looser in his step there out of his hip and his hind leg. I thought in this group, the plainer fronted steer ducks his pins just a bit, maybe not as muscular throughout. Excellent class of heavyweights. Put your hands together for those kids.
First call for all breed champions to the holding pen, please. All breed champions to the holding pen. Our results. AOB Black, Class 2. First place, Mr. Nathan Powers. Second place, Shelby Cox. Third place, Morgan Smith. Fourth place, Riley Coco. Need all breed champions start making your way to the holding pen, please, for the drive. All breed champions to the holding pen, please. And reserve champions.
Let's not waste time. We'll take this slow. We've got miles behind us, but miles to go. So let's just break this down to the simplest truth. You and I as one will always be better than two. Yeah, you and I as one will always be better than two.
My compliments to all of our black-hided AOB exhibitors in this particular division. I think an excellent group of cattle that came through the ring and a really good set of class winners and second places to follow those. I think that's just an effort there that the young people put in that was awesome, and they did a nice job getting them here in the ring. Young ladies lightweight steer in this particular group won that class just in terms of quality and freshness and shape out of the back of his blades. Very dimensional from above and a lot of dimension and spread from behind. As we said, he needs to be a little softer there in the middle of his body. I want to drop his flank and just give his rear leg more stability and security as it goes. But man, that one has got a good look and a really round turn to the upper part of his body. And the one that was second to him, I thought that was a moderate, big-bodied steer that's probably a little more consistent in terms of his finish. From the profile, he was a little plainer, a little more generic in his look, a little higher in his loin and steeper out of his hip. I just didn't think his balance and symmetry came together like the class winner that won the lightweights. Black and white one circling, obviously on the stand. That one's bone, hair coat, and quality from the side is second to none in this group. I'll be honest, I expected him to handle a bit flatter behind his shoulder because underneath, I think he could stand to be just a bit wider from behind, but he actually surprisingly opens up bigger and more dimensional out of the back of his blades, and still from above. I read that calf to have a lot of dimension and still very square in the way he uses. As we said, just quality, balance, and the way it comes together is so good, and plenty dimensional from above. As we said, from behind, he'll pull his hock in just a bit. I don't think he's genuinely quite as big at the seat of his pants as his hair makes him seem, but man, that one is awful intriguing there from the side and the way he's presented. The second place behind is incredibly stout-featured, really bold in the shape of the upper part of his body. He's got a good expression out of the back of his shoulder and a lot of dimension there from behind. And still, you ask him to go. That's a square-built calf that's flexible out of his rear leg. I didn't think his top line tail head hooked in quite as good as our class winner there, and maybe not as deep there in the middle of his body back to his rear rib and flank, but definitely a lot of quality in his presence, in the extra shape that he's got working there out of the back of his blades. I think a very, very competitive division. To me personally, the quality, balance, and freshness of the young man's out of Class 2 is going to be our champion. Congratulations to him. We drop in the second, and he's certainly in the mix. I think both of these cattle that are in contention are good-looking, bold in the upper part of their body, and so shapely and expressive in the turn over their rib and their loin. I think both of them maybe could be set back on their shoulder and need just a bit. I think as you circle those cattle, the young lady's black steer's longer-bodied, more flexible out of his hip and his hind leg. He's my second favorite. He'll be reserved. Congratulations.
Our results, the OB Black, Mr. Nathan Powers from Class 2, our champion. Our reserve champion, Miss Shelby Cox, also out of Class 2. Our buckles for the AOB Black. Champion buckle donated by Odell Excavation and Equipment. Reserve champion Black, Sunset Construction and Excavation. Please, all breed champions and reserve champions, do not forget, we need you in the vet room with your animal as soon as the steer show is over. Thank you.
For those of you still standing ringside, put your hands together for all the steer exhibitors and heifer exhibitors that have come through the ring. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to get to come back here to Hays County. I thought the steer show last year was extremely high quality and very competitive. And again, this year, the quality maybe stepped up a notch. And the young people, though, haven't changed. Incredibly respectful, no matter where they ended up. That means a lot to me. I think it's very important that we teach our kids to not only be gracious winners, but gracious losers, because more often than not, we're going to get beat. And I think how you handle that definitely says a lot about your character and how you are and how you're raising your young people in this industry we're in. I really appreciate the opportunity to get to work with cattle and young people. That's something I'm really passionate about, something that my family does for a living, and something we'll continue to do, something that we definitely hold near and dear to our heart. I'm going to go through the division winners because I certainly think they're very deserving of talking about and just the quality that they got. The American that wins a trio in that particular division, I thought all three of those cattle were very good. To me, he made the most sense because he was one of the wider, bigger middle cattle that were more ready in terms of his finish, but yet he was still loose and functional in his skeleton. As I said, he hit me a little plain-fronted as he came in, but I think when he comes together, he's got a nice level, balanced look from the profile. Maybe not the most extreme in his bone, maybe not the most extreme in his look or height to shoulder. That's a good calf, though, I think that's fed well and proportions right. The British calf that wins that division, build, balance, and quality may be one of the better ones in this lineup. Right here is so good in the way his neck sits into the top of his blades, but in motion, he maintains his quality. I think that's a testament to how good his skeleton is. But you get your hands on him. I think that calf's got some dimension out of the back of his blades. As we said, I don't know if he's just quite as bulky from behind, maybe a nickel shallower there in his twist. But man, that one has got a demanding presence of quality here when you step off afar from the cattle. The yellow one that wins that division, he's slick-haired, pretty flat, and just kind of coarse-looking there from the outside. But man, that is a good slick-shearing one there. That is a wide-billed, broad-bodied one that is so fresh and shapely there out of the back of his blades. And I think the most impressive thing about him in this entire lineup, he is genuinely wide and muscular from above, but he maintains it. He plants and pushes off a very wide and square hock and rear foot. And when he comes together, I think the fact that his feet and his legs are so good, it allows him to proportion right. He maybe isn't the slickest necked. He'll duck his pins ever so slightly on the move, and from behind, he's got a bit of swelling there on his hock. But to me, it is so impressive that he is so powerful, yet so athletic and mobile in the way his feet come to the surface. And the black brockle that wins that last division, again, in this group, is just extremely high quality in terms of his bone, his hair, his presentation. I think more importantly, he's very genuine there in the middle of his body. He's big and soft and practical in his rib. He handles with some dimension there behind his shoulder. As we said, you know, he's big up high. I think from behind the cattle, he could maintain some width and squareness there to the surface. He probably isn't the biggest there at the seat of his pants, maybe as the one in front of him. But man, that one's quality, presence, and ability to set up with such a high quality look is absolutely unique. So really appreciate the opportunity. Been an awesome steer show. I think we got to go through some showmanship, but certainly appreciate the opportunity again. I think the calf that best blends genuine muscularity, practicality with the highest quality looks, the black brockle, he'll be your champion. Congratulations. We drop in the second there out of that division. And again, as we said, very shapely, cutability driven, and so stout structured there at the surface. he's not as just full in his heart there in his flank, and maybe not as good and true in terms of the levelness there of his top line. But again, really appreciate the steer exhibitors here. I've done my absolute best to describe them accurately. You may not have cared where you fell, but I've done my best to be accurate in describing your livestock. That's the most important to me. My second favorite's the yellow one. He'll be reserved. Congratulations.
All right, our grand champion 2024, senior from Dripping Springs, Mr. Nathan Powers. Our reserve champion, Mr. Luke Lorenzen, out of the AOB Class 2 from Dripping Springs 4-H. Luke Lorenzen. First call, senior showmanship. To the holding pen, please. First call, senior showmanship. Our buckles for our grand champion market steer donated by Ozona Bank. Our reserve champion market steer buckle donated by H&H Flooring Solutions, the Herring family.
Last call, senior showmanship.
quality and competitive group of senior showmen that we have here to represent our first division. I think all the way through, young people do an awesome job, I think, in motion, getting out in front of their cattle, making them going at the right kind of pace that they need to. But at the same time, I do a nice job of being aware of where our feet and legs are, trying to get their top lines right and trying to have the most correct foot placement. The showmanship thing is so subjective, and it definitely varies depending on who's helping you. To me, it's about which kid can make their calf look the best, because in the end, what really matters and pays the bills is who can get their calf shown the best so they can place the best. So I'm not big on asking questions. I think it's important to be knowledgeable about this, but I think the people helping you can definitely supply you with that. I just want the kid that can get it done every time, no matter what color, calf, kind, size, weight they're showing, that's just very reliable and very comfortable in hustling and trying to get the best view their calf. I think in this group, it's very competitive and very close. Probably the biggest difference to me in this group, I think there's several showmen that are extremely intense, do an awesome job of getting their head and neck out of their body. Front legs are too far underneath their calf. I think that makes them look straight-fronted. I don't think their balance comes together quite as good. So my compliments to all of our seniors here. To me, the one that was the most consistent, having feet and legs right the whole time, loining, getting their nose out, and bringing their ears forward. The young lady with the pink calf, she'll be our champion.
Junior showman to the show pen, please. Junior showman to the show pen. Our 2024 senior show person, Miss Kelsey Tovar.
What a competitive group of intermediates we have, top to bottom. I think a very solid group. I think in this particular lineup, feet and leg placement is very on point, and I appreciate that. I think if their feet and legs are in the wrong spot, it completely affects the way everything else comes together. I think an awesome group here. I think these individuals did a good job of getting their cattle to walk at the right pace. Maybe there's some differences in terms of maybe having our feet and legs a little too stretched out. Maybe some of us are pulling our calf's nose in. Maybe some of us need a hook or tail and get that down. But I think all in all, a very competitive group. The one that was the most consistent in terms of having front feet square, having their neck back and their nose out to me, it was a young lady here in the purple. She'll be our champion. Congratulations to her.
Our junior showmanship person award for 2024 steer show, Miss Penelope Soto. Intermediate. Junior showman. Lead you to the ring, please. Junior showman to the ring. Buckle for our intermediate showmanship award this year, Huckabee family in memory of Mike Huckabee. Clover, showmanship, please get ready. Clover, start making your way to the holding pen, please. Not as many numbers here in our junior division, but I think a trio of young women and a young man that do an excellent job. I thought on the lead, all of them did a nice job of getting their head up, staying in front of their calf, and making them go at the right kind of speed. There's some differences here in feet and leg placement. Maybe we get a little stretched out in some places. Maybe at times we need to try and pick up on their belly and try and level them out. And maybe we get them just a nickel stretched out up front. But I think all in all, very, very close here. To me, the closest decisions, the young ladies. I think they're both awesome in terms of their eye contact, their ring presence. I think they did an awesome job of walking in with their head up and just demanding attention from the judge, and I really appreciate that. I thought there was one that just did a little better job of having our front feet a little more in line where they needed to. I think over time we helped maintain our top line a little better that way. But my compliments to all three of you here. Young lady in the middle will be the champion. Congratulations. Our junior showman for 2024, Miss Everly Shumway. Our buckle donated by Lene Construction. All breed champions, reserve champions must report to the vet room with your animal. All champions and breed champions must report to the vet room with your animals, please.
Again, I just wanted to reiterate, I really appreciate the opportunity to get to come back to Hayes County. An awesome set of cattle, but a better set of young people. I thought they did an awesome job this year with their projects and getting them shown. My compliments to them and best of luck to them there in the spring. I think it's so unique that the county shows before the major shows kind of give you an idea where you're at. I think that's a really unique situation. Our Clover kids or Pee-wees here are doing an awesome job. I tell you, both the young people here are working hard, getting their head up and trying to have them look the absolute best, getting their feet and legs set where they need to. My compliments to both of them. I thought one of them did just a little better job of maintaining, holding that head up, doing their absolute best to get their nose out. That was a young man. He'll be the champion. Congratulations.
All right. Our Clover Showman for 2024, Mr. William Zellhart. Buckle donated by Sweetwater Cookies and Cindy Hunter. All breed champions and reserve champions, you must go to the vet room. Must go to